everybody. Welcome. I'm Daniel G. Garza, and this is Put Together Conversations. Welcome to the show. This is one of our special edition shows brought to you at 2 o'clock today. I want to thank all of you all watching on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Remember that you are welcome to share this. Make sure that your friends and family are joining in the conversation. If you are watching us on YouTube, will you do us a favor and scroll down and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and make sure that you get notified every time there's a new show on the air. This week, we're doing a comeback. Very few of our guests get to come back so quickly to talk about what's going on, especially because most of you asked a lot of questions. Sorry, my earbuds are falling off. You guys asked a lot of questions about coffee. And I feel like the last episode, we didn't get to talk about everything we wanted to hear about coffee. Now, we were really grateful for all the conversation we were having. But towards the end, it was you. You folks wanted to know so much more about coffee, so that we decided to bring back our friend, Stephen Prevost. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for coming back so quick.
Thank you for having me back so quick. I had a lot of fun the first time.
Thank you. And we were so excited that we got our I Love Joe's Brother t-shirt, which is so awesome.
I am Joe's brother, and so are you.
Yeah, I have to say about these t-shirts, though, they're very soft and comfortable. And this is one of my favorite colors, brown. So I was really excited to get it. For those of you wondering about Joe's Brothers, I'm going to show you really quick. This is one of this is the sample we were talking about last time, the Wonderland. Is it flavor? Do you call it a flavor or?
It's a blend.
The blend, and we not only did we talk about it, but we got it. We received our package, and before we start, I want to show that Steve was so cool. This is what came in the box for Christian. So it was really nice. We got information on some of the stuff we were talking about. If you're wondering what all did you talk about the first episode, we're going to repost the link so you folks can go check it out and hear everything we talked about. But this episode today is about coffee. This is a coffee show. So I hope you folks have your cup of coffee ready, which I do.
Yep. I got mine.
We had our little cups. But for the folks that didn't watch the first episode, could you go back and tell us a little bit about where Joe's Brothers Coffee came from, how it started, and why you started it?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it short. But yeah, my brother and my father passed away from ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. It's got a really long scientific name, amyolateral sclerosis. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And as part of that, as after my brother Joe passed away, I was really just distraught, and so I was trying to make something good come out of it, and keep myself from going down this like really black hole. After his loss, I was just really devastated. So long story short, that kind of brought me to coffee roasting. We talked a little bit more about that previously, but so now I roast coffee. I have my own brand going, and I roast for ALS. I get to talk about coffee. I get to talk about ALS, and a portion of my profits go to a couple of different ALS charities. There's one that's called ALS TDI, which is kind of like a national charity, but they're not really a charity. They're more of they're a science foundation. They're actually doing medical research. Technically all their funding comes from donations. They don't get any government funding or anything that I'm aware of. And then primarily who I contribute to is a local ALS charity here in West Michigan. It's called the Susan Mast ALS Foundation. They're like super paid people. And their main focus is on respite care So if you or a family member have ALS, they can go in and to your home and kind of help you out with different things. Primarily giving the family members, the primary caregivers, of the home, a break from taking care of their family member, which allows you to go out of the house, do errands, do whatever you need to do, or just, give yourself a break. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And again, for those of you that are just watching this episode and haven't watched the first visit that Stephen did to the show, we will repost that link so you can go check it out and find out more. Because we wouldn't do it justice by rushing through it. So I want you to go and check out the other show. It's on all the platforms, all of our channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So you can definitely check it out. But I'll post those later so you can watch them. But again, this episode is about coffee. And here at the Ramirez Garza home, we're definitely coffee lovers. One of the things that I have issues with is when Christian drinks coffee, he gets too hyper. So I really enjoyed the fact that this coffee did not make him jittery. And for those of you that know Christian, my baby loves to talk, and sometimes he gets a little too chatty with the coffee. So I'm really happy about this blend.
That's good.
Let's start from the beginning of coffee. Not all. Oh, there we go. Hi, Berkeley. Welcome to the show. Yep, I'm glad you agree with me. She's known Christian for a long time too. Let's start with coffee. Not all coffee is the same. There's different colors. There's different tints. How does that break down?
Well, let me kind of break it down. There's two primary types of coffee to start with. There's Arabica, which I roast, and then there's Robusta. Robusta is a lower grade coffee. It's kind of like, it's more commercial, what I call a commercial or commercial coffee. It's basically all the red and the blue cans that we see everywhere. That's primarily what is in those. It's just not really great quality. However, it does have higher caffeine content. The specialty grade Arabica that I roast has probably about half of what Robusta does as far as caffeine. So when you drink a specialty coffee, you're not getting as much caffeine as you would from, the conventional stuff like that. So there's that. And then, of course, the type of roasting that I do, which is fluid airbed roasting, that kind of gives it even more of a smooth flavor. So you're not getting the edgy, burnt bite, kind of stuff you find all over the place.
Because I've learned that, starting to learn about coffee, and which is really weird because I've been drinking coffee since I was like 15 years old.
Same here.
It's not until recently that I realized that coffee doesn't always have to have that bitter aftertaste, that it does. Right. So how and why does that happen?
Well, it really begins and ends with quality. Why do you go out to a fancy restaurant and pay $100 a plate, right? Because you're going to get a fantastic meal. You're going to get fantastic service. The food on the plate is like top notch. There's almost like no imperfections, right? And there's a chef in the back who's got probably 10, 20, 30 years of experience cooking. Way better than we could ever make at home. It's a unique experience. Well, specialty coffee is a lot like that. In the specialty world, this is why we pay, retail prices of, $15 and $20 a bag, because the coffee starts on a small farm somewhere. I'll just say Colombia for now, because there are specialty coffee farms all around the world. However, these particular farms specialize in specialty grade coffee. So they're meticulous about picking the cherries at the perfect ripeness. So you're not getting unripe or overripe cherries being picked. Because technically the coffee bean is the seed of the fruit, right? So if you've ever eaten a cherry with a pit in it, it's kind of the same thing. You take the pit out and then you can eat the fruit, right? Well, nobody really eats coffee fruit most of the time, unless you're an animal or a bird. But
That's us. Yeah.
oh, did I miss the ice cream truck? Oh man.
Yeah.
So where was I? Oh, the
pits and
the pits. So that the coffee bean that we grind and drink and brew is actually the seed of a fruit. So it's not, it doesn't, I mean, it's found in nature that way, but through a little processing, so they peel the fruit off and then they wash the fruit mucilage off the seed, which leaves us with the coffee bean. So we're talking about quality, right? You're getting, the reason specialty coffee tastes as good as it does is because it starts and ends with quality. So you're going to pick the ripest fruit you can, but not overripe and not underripe. So it's got to be the Goldilocks, basically, of, it's got to be just right. So you pick the just ripe cherries, and then those get processed. And then once the process, so they separate the fruit from the seed, they wash the beans, sometimes two or three times, depending on the farm, the actual type of processing that they do. And then they get dried, usually on big giant cement patios or raised beds, which are kind of like waist height. They're like big wood frame things with netting in it. So they just lay the beans out on there and they let them dry in the air until they're roughly about 10 to 15% moisture. So they're, if you've ever seen a dry navy bean, in the grocery store, you get the dry beans. It's kind of the same thing. So when I get them, they're like big bags of beans, basically. So once the drying process is done, then they're sorted according to size and quality. So they get a physical appearance. Is there any bug damage or is it broken? Because those things happen. I mean, it's an agricultural product, right? So you're going to get bugs eating the fruit. And then there's one called it's actually called the coffee borer beetle that actually climbs into the fruit and eats it. And then, of course, during that process, it damages the seed. So those things get sorted out by hand. We're talking like remote farming communities up in the mountains in these, rough terrain areas. So they don't have like fancy electronic sorting things with electric eyes that can pick out all the bad stuff. This is all done by hand, mostly by women. So they're sitting, with these big bowls of, it all depends, but there's different ways of doing it. But there's, sometimes there's a belt, and they're moving along the belt like this, and they're, the women are just sitting there with their visually.
It sounds like the Lucy episode with the chocolate.
Yeah, exactly like that. Only, except they're not eating them. They're, they're actually picking out the bad ones. So it's and they do it rather quickly. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of manual labor. And that happens sometimes 2 or 3 times. So there will be a first, there's quality check. I mean, they're constantly looking at the quality. And then once they've gone through that process, then they go to the exporter. There's usually a co-op that will buy all these little small farms, coffee. So a lot of the coffee farmers, they're like, well, they're just little family farms, you know. They might have a coffee harvest of maybe 200 pounds, right? Well, that's not really enough to export on their own. So what they do is they go to the co-op and they take their little 200-pound harvest and they blend it with a bunch of other small farmers that might have 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 500, whatever, but they're all small. So, and they put those all together and they sell them to a co-op, and then the co-op again sorts them, according to quality. Then somebody there makes a sample roast. So they'll take like, I don't know, less than a pound. It's, a quarter of a pound or whatever of coffee. They'll roast that little tiny bit and then cup it, and they'll taste it and see how good it tastes. And then again, they give that a grading score. And then they'll say, okay, this lot of coffee has a score of like 85, right? Out of 100. So we're talking 0 to 100 is a cupping score. So that when they cup that little sample, they'll give it a cupping score, and then that helps determine the price that the coffee farmer gets paid. And then again, that reflects on how much I have to pay for it. Gotcha. So on a, like for instance, I'll just, throw it out there. All the coffees that I buy are usually between 83 and 88 or 87 on the cupping score. It's like, because I can keep it, it's all a little bit complicated, but it's basically it's what I can afford to buy. And it's what I can sell at a reasonable price. Because once you get up over 87, 88 into the 90s, then you're looking at a coffee that is such high quality. They're charging like, $8.50 to $60, $80 a pound for that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's like a regular cigar versus a Cuban cigar, right? You can go to the gas station and get a cigar for like $1? But if you want to buy but as Cuban cigar, you're going to pay, I don't even know what. It's a lot of money, right? Because it's quality. So
before you continue with the next process, let me just remind everybody you're watching Put It Together Conversations. This is a special episode on coffee, and we have our friend Stephen Prevost joining us today from Joe's Brothers Coffee to talk about the process. And so far, we've there's stuff that I didn't know, like I didn't know the quality process that it went through. So for those of you joining us, we're talking about the quality process that it goes from the harvesting part to the selling part, because there's still, I feel like there's so much more than that. One of the questions on the board is the caffeine content of the beans controlled by the drying process or the roasting process?
The caffeine content is essentially up to nature. It has what it has. There's, like I said, the difference between a Robusta coffee, which is kind of commercial grade, where you actually have to pour like tons of cream in it just so you can tolerate it. And then, of course, the specialty grade coffee. Arabica bean, it's a, what am I trying to think of? It's there's a scientific name for it,
So by the time it's coming from, like one of the, I don't know where, but the most known place that we know coffee comes from, like it's Colombia. So we know, like, by the time it leaves Colombia, you already know if it's caffeinated or decaffeinated.
Yes. Well, all coffee in the world is caffeinated.
Okay.
It doesn't become uncaffeinated until it goes through a process, which is human intervention.
Okay. But that happens at that level, or happens at your level?
That actually, no, that does not. That happens before I buy them.
Before you buy it, gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So by the time you get it to you, by the time Joe's Brothers Coffee gets the coffee, you already have like your caffeinated batch and your decaffeinated batch. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. There's actually the coffee I buy for decaf is actually called Swiss water process, and it's actually decaffeinated by the company called Swiss Water.
Gotcha.
It's 100% chemical-free process in order to remove the caffeine from the bean. Other decaffeinated coffees they're used. You're distracting.
Now, we do have another question on this because you were mentioning about the quality of the coffee, which is another thing I did not know about. But like, who would be the purchasers of the 90 plus coffees that you were talking about?
Probably what I would call a coffee snob. I mean,
Okay.
they're people. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with them. They just love coffee so much, and there's like, they want the best, the absolute best, you know.
Gotcha.
So, and there's definitely a market out there for them, and it's a small market, but they're there.
But the normal, like us, everyday coffee drinkers,
yeah,
the probably the highest level we get is like your brand, like an 87.
I would expect so. Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's just I think this is really okay. Just before we go on, I think this is really interesting because when we travel, when we go places and we talk about coffee, and people are like, "Hey, you want to buy this coffee?" I think for people like us that are everyday drinkers, but we want to try some really good stuff, knowing those numbers has a big value as a buyer.
Oh, yeah.
Go and go, oh, okay, this is based on what Steven taught us. This is an 80%. And we're like, okay, that's goodish. But then you see something here, it's like, oh, this is an 85. We should get that. That's better for the price. Like, this is really, as a coffee drinker, this is really good. Especially when you go to like, okay, but first of all, I'm going to tell folks, not because he's on the show, but the Wonderland brand is, that blend is really good. And some of the other ones, because he was really nice and sent us some samples. I'm really, okay, before you continue, I was like a drug addict last week. Because he sent us a little package of the Wonderland, and I was down to the last. I was tapping on the baggie into my little cup holder for like a drug addict trying to get that last bit of drug into it. It was really sad. If it wasn't that good, I would not be doing that. But now I get now I understand why I was enjoying it so much and enjoying that last bit of flavor without getting that bitter aftertaste, and that makes it makes a difference. It
really does. And so I don't know. Now, obviously, I'm not familiar with California and what your neighborhood is like, but you should really seek out. I mean, I really hate to say it, but you're never going to get a 90 plus coffee at Starbucks. It just isn't going to happen. They call themselves specialty coffee, but when you've reached that, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, which doesn't really matter on the grand scale, but you know, when you reach the size that they have, and they actually own their own coffee farms. I mean, they're not going to sell a 90 plus coffee at your corner Starbucks shop.
Right.
You're going to have to find like the out of the way, locally owned, independent coffee shop who has probably been around for a long time. Like, I'm talking 20 plus years, you know, because those are the guys who really know coffee, you know. I mean, I'm still new. I've only been doing this for 7 or 8 years, 6, 7, 8 years.
So the question right now is like, where would I see the coffee quality? Is it printed on bags somewhere?
No.
Is it common knowledge for us to know?
No, unless you're buying it from a really specific. I have seen it randomly online because, you know, I surf coffee websites all the time. But as far as like walking into a shop and looking at a bag or a menu on the wall or whatever, you're probably not going to see those numbers. Unless you actually go up and say, hey, if you know that they roast in that particular shop, it's like, can I talk to the roaster? I'm interested to know what your actual quality grading is on your coffee.
Yeah. So like they're asking like if would a high-end hotels be the ones
Yes,
that serve that like
really high end. We're probably talking 5-star plus hotels is where you would find the 90 plus coffees.
gotcha.
Um, um,
So
yeah.
always say yes to the coffee. If they're offering you coffee and
Oh,
you're a coffee connoisseur, say yes to the coffee so you can know what
if you
would you what okay, would a common Joe coffee
yeah.
uh, would a common person like me would we be able to tell the difference between a lower register and a higher register of coffee? Or does it really take a special palate to know the difference?
in the in the most basic sense, no, it doesn't take a special. It does not take a specially trained palate to be able to determine good from bad coffee. You've done it yourself. You've gone, oh wow, this is really great, because what really determines good coffee is what your feeling is about it. And you're like, wow, this is so much better than the other crap I've been drinking for so many years. You have the palate to determine what is good and what isn't. Now, to get into the specifics of how exactly good it is, then that takes a little more education. And then, you know, read books, watch videos, talk to your roasters, your local roaster. If you find an independent shop, walk in and say, hey, do you guys roast your own? And they'll tell you, no, yes, we do. Or no, we buy our coffee from XYZ coffee roaster. And then you take note and you get a hold of XYZ coffee roaster and you say, I'm learning about coffee and I'm interested in, do you have coffees? Can you tell me about your coffees and what quality scores they usually have? An honest roaster who wants to share their trade is going to tell you, because that's
Gotcha.
partly what our job as roasters is, to educate our customers.
Cool.
Because we
So,
all
yeah, so for everybody watching, this is Putting Together Conversations, and our friend Stephen Prevost from Joe's Brother Coffee.
it's a mouthful.
I forgot where I was there for a minute. Like, where are we? Is talking today to us because the first time he visited the show, we were talking about we ended up talking about coffee, but it was such a small part of the show that a lot of you were asking more questions and wanting to know more about coffee. So this is your opportunity to ask our questions. If you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, please post a question and I'll make sure that he sees it. For those of you that are watching us on Twitter, I have my Twitter line open, so make sure that you add your question and I'll make sure that he responds to any of your questions. If you are watching this on a replay, you can still ask a question. I'll make sure that we get it to him and we'll make sure that he responds. We're making sure that he is part of the conversation. We're learning so far the groundwork, literally, like what it takes to grow the coffee, quality control, the original coffee, and how it gets basically to your local market and for you to buy. We're learning about the quality of the coffee based on percentage. What is the best quality and what would be the best that us normal shoppers might find at our local shops. Also, the taste. I'm learning that the taste will tell you a lot about the quality of coffee. The aftertaste that it leaves you, the bitterness, because usually it's the last sip of coffee always tells me the quality. Now I'm learning that much, because if I feel like even if my coffee got cold, that last sip of coffee should have the same flavor as that first sip. I should not get that bitter taste. I should not have that aftertaste. And again, that's one of the reasons we brought you back, because your coffee is teaching me how to appreciate it. And I'm 50 years old. Again, I've been drinking coffee for 35 years. And I can't believe that I'm now learning to differentiate the quality and taste of coffees, which is really great. So for those of you watching, please ask your questions, whatever the question is, and we'll make sure. We have another question on the board. The name is on your chest.
Just in case you forgot what coffee you're drinking.
Folks, this is why you should limit how much your director is allowed to write on the comment section. Here's another question. What is the reason for the different roast of the beans, light, medium, dark, etc.? What is the reason for those?
Well, there's a couple reasons. Mostly it has to do with the roaster. Kind of, I mean, I hate to compare myself to Gordon Ramsay, but kind of like a chef would say, this steak needs to be cooked this way. You know, the chef is the one who decides what the meal is, right? Decide what food goes with what dessert and all that good stuff. The chef in the coffee world is the roaster. When I get a new sample of coffee, I roast it a couple of different ways. And then I determine to myself, how do I feel that this coffee is best roasted to give that, to make its flavor shine from start to finish in the cup. Like you were saying, if we all get distracted, our coffee sits, it gets cold. When it's cold, it should still taste good. It shouldn't be gross, right? And again, that's like people will argue that point, but anyhow, so I'll sample the coffee a couple of different ways, and then I'll say, okay, this is like this is the one I want to sell it, right? I want to sell this coffee as a medium. I want to sell this coffee as a light roast, because that's the way I feel it is best expressed in the cup. That's where you get those. For instance, my Jaguar honey. I don't remember if I sent you a sample of that one or not, but it's the one I primarily roast as a light roast. And I recommend everyone to drink it as a light roast. However, like I said before, I don't consider myself a pretentious coffee roaster. If you want a dark roast, I will give you the dark roast, right? Or if you want it roasted light instead of dark, I will give you that too. So I will always recommend what I feel is going to give you the best coffee.
Gotcha. Because now we're getting a little more into the blends. Do you have it? I'm getting. Oh yeah, okay. See right here. This is. I think you can see that. This is the light roast. And then we have the Wonderland, which is a dark roast. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera.
It's a little blurry.
A little blurry. Okay. Trust me when I say this, folks. This one.
That's the light roast, yeah.
That's the light roast. And then this is
that's my Wonderland
dark roast. I know. Don't blame my poor little camera. But... And then, for instance, I showed in the beginning of, okay, there's the Wonderland. Let me take this banner off so you guys can see that better.
Yeah.
So there's the Wonderland. This is considered the dark roast, right?
That is my signature dark roast blend. Now, you cannot get Wonderland in a light roast. I apologize. That one will not come in a light or a medium. That one is just dark roast. That is all, because that is Wonderland, right? So as far as
this is the Jaguar honey.
Jaguar honey is a single origin.
And then this is the respite
roast.
Respite roast.
Respite roast is a blend. That is the one that was my first blend. I actually made that for the Susan Mast ALS Foundation, and I sell it under there. When you buy that particular blend from me, 100% of the profits go to Susan Mast ALS Foundation.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What is the difference between I consider myself like a purist. I drink the manly coffee. Give me an Americano. Just make regular coffee with a cup of sugar. That's it. But what is the difference between going in and ordering just an Americano or just a regular coffee versus a blend? What you're talking about? What's the difference? Well,
blends are made up of multiple single origins, right? Okay. So, for instance, my Wonderland blend, that comes from two different origins. One's from South America, one's from Central America. And I roast them together. they're what's called a pre-roast blend. So I blend the beans together and then I roast them. And then there's a post-roast blend, which is roast each coffee separately, and then once they're roasted, then you blend them together. So a blend is simply just multiple. And a blend, there are some roasters I've seen actually blend up 7 different coffees.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
does that, like, would that be the same? We're talking about like person Gordon Ramsay, like for instance, would that be the difference between cooking a steak with just salt and pepper versus cooking a steak with different seasonings and spices on it?
Yeah. Yeah, like a purist would be like just, you know, a dash of salt and a dash of pepper, and that is all and nothing else. Or some people don't want any spice whatsoever. They think the flavor of the meat should shine through, and that is all there should be. And that's just the only thing they want. They don't want any seasonings of any kind. Just sear it on one side, sear it on the other, and it should still be mooing when it hits my plate.
Yeah.
I personally am not a fan of that kind of meat, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a pure.
So when you walk into a shop, because I want folks that are watching this part of the show to know that, hey, we don't want you to just drink coffee. We want you to enjoy coffee your way. For some of us, I'm like, yes, just give me just good old Juan Valdez just freaking delivered it and let me drink my coffee. And then there are some people that, for instance, there's a Christmas blend and there's an Easter blend, and I'm like, I get lost in the flavors. Of course, now that I think I'm a connoisseur, yes, give me. So when folks hear this is a coffee blend, there is going to be 2 or more different regions of coffee that are mixed into one, correct?
Yeah. Yes. That and so yeah, those are your terms you're going to want to understand. Single origin means, okay, I'm just going to use, since we both love Juan Valdez, Colombia, right? So a single origin could mean Colombia is the whole country, right? Then, for instance, you could also, which I sell, is Hula. I'm never sure of the pronunciation because I'm not Spanish. It's Huila. So it's Julia, Colombia. And then within Hula is a smaller little farm, right? So however I name it on the bag, it could be Juan Valdez's farm in Julia, Colombia, right? So you can drill down from the country level all the way down to the farm level, and it's still single origin coffee all the way through. So if you look at a bag and it just says 100% Colombian, that is a single origin.
Gotcha.
If it says Juan Valdez farm, then that is also a single origin.
Gotcha. Right. Correct. So I just looked it up to make sure it's okay. So it's Huila.
Huila. Okay.
Huila. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that because you're the expert on the language.
What? Because I'm Latino, I should know everything Spanish. No,
I'm not saying.
But yeah. And oddly enough, when I looked at it, it has. For those of you, if you look it up, it has Huila, and then you scroll down, and it says Juan Valdez right next to it. Garzon Huila. So yes, we're in the right vicinity.
Okay.
Okay, so when we go into a specialty shop, we're like, I want coffee, and it says single region. We know that it's one coffee from one area. If it says blended, it's most likely 2 or more from different areas of coffee that the roaster decided, hey, these would blend well together. It's like, what meat are you eating with what wine will it pair correctly? And you kind of mix it all together. So anything more than 3 or 4, it's like a coursed meal in your coffee. It's like different regions that work well together correctly, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Are there certain periods during the year that certain blends are better? Like, for instance, if you do a Christmas blend, which a lot of the big chains do, is it better to buy it during that time, or can a Christmas blend? I guess what I'm asking, can a Christmas blend be enjoyed year round, or is it better to buy it during that season?
Well, the different annual blends like Christmas blend or holiday blend or Mother's Day blend, whatever they happen to, be pushing that time. That's really just a marketing thing. I did the same thing. That's how we got Wonderland. I started it as a winter blend because I wanted to have my own winter blend. So everybody else was doing it. Why not me? So, and as time has gone on, I've gotten such high marks on it from my customers. I've decided, okay, it's not going to be just a winter blend. I'm going to keep it around year round, and I'm just going to drop the winter, and it's just going to be Wonderland blend. And so that's my signature blend. Who regulates the names? Single Origin.
And I think we've kind of determined that it has to be either from one area or several from different areas in order to claim what it is, right?
Yeah, well, that's partly there are no real, there's no government regulation saying I have to, I can lie and put the wrong thing on the label. Or
this bean was picked from virgins out of the most highest rare mountains of Colombia on Easter's morning with Jesus looking over them. And I guess.
Yeah, there are, with few exceptions, there isn't really a heavy regulated. Yeah, there's USDA. They can say that I have to put the country of origin on it, supposedly, but if it's like part of my blend, I don't. Right? Because that blend is now my proprietary recipe. So it's okay, so I don't have to reveal what's in the coffee. As far as this one's from Tanzania and this one is from Colombia, and I blend them together, and then I throw in a little Sumatra. I don't have to tell you what I'm putting in my blend, except I do have to say it's 100% Arabica. I do have to tell you what kinds of things are, if I add anything that's not coffee, I have to tell you that. I have to put that on the label. But if it's 100% coffee that's unadulterated and by any other means other than heat, where it's been roasted, I don't have to tell you this element of the blend has been light roasted or this part has been dark roasted. Now, I want to tell you those kind of things because that helps you decide as a customer. That helps you decide if you're going to like it or not. Right. Because you've been drinking coffee for 30 some years, you're going to go, well, it's got a 50% light roast and a 50% dark roast, and I don't like light roast, so I'm not going to drink that. So that kind of gives you the option to choose whether or not you want to buy that coffee.
And we do, as shoppers, we do compare. Especially, I've gotten into ordering online copies from smaller companies, especially during the lockdown, because a lot of people were like, hey, we're going through some hard times. Please buy our brand. And I wanted to help the best way I could, which is kind of like I found you. For those of you, we didn't talk about this at the beginning because we talked about it in the last episode. Stephen and I connected on Alignable, and that's how I found him. And I manage the LGBTQ business page on Alignable. So if you're an LGBTQ business, please find us there. And I was like, oh, he sells coffee. Who is the Stephen Prevost, and what is he? And that's how I bought your coffee, and that's how I fell in love with it. But you're right, but then we become critics ourselves. Like, well, your last batch wasn't as good as the first batch I bought, but I believe that that's what makes it homemade, for lack of better, which is a company that's putting it to a system. It's like when you buy natural juices, and it sometimes says on the label, color may vary by batch, because it's nature, and nature doesn't care what color you like.
Right.
She's going to do what she does.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is, for those of you looking into wanting to buy, and I'm going to put the website up again, if you're like looking into buying coffee that you know it's going to be of the best quality that they have available, and that it's going to be as close as possibly can to the first batch you buy.
Mhm.
I like them because I've had the batch that I have at home. Then I come to Christian's and he makes me coffee, and I'm like, this is my coffee. This is the coffee I drink at home. Like, you
Mhm.
know what you can count on. Uh, which, yes, if you go and buy one of the name brand at the grocery store that you've been buying for 35 years, and it always tastes the same because it's made, processed the same. But then you go and buy something that's custom, and you're like, wow, this is really good coffee. You start noticing, and this is what we want. I mean, you guys that have been watching Putting Together Conversations for a long time, you know that that's our thing here. We want you to not just walk away with information, but we want you to get better educated and know more. So we hope you are learning some stuff here. If you're watching the show, we are Putting Together Conversations, and our guest today is Stephen Prevost with Joe's Brothers Coffee, and we're talking about learning the process, tasting for quality, and getting the best cup of coffee you can. Come on, how many of us count? Come on, let's face it. Look at me in the eyes. You count on that first cup of coffee in the morning to get you going.
Mhm.
It's like you feel like Garfield onto that first dark flavor to just hits your tongue like me. But we want Stephen has been talking to us and educating us a little bit. If you want more information on the who, why, when, and where, we're going to post the link to the first episode he was on, so you can check us out. So all of you watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter can go back and check that out. We're down to the last 15 minutes.
Wow.
It's gone fast. You think we're all caffeinated here or something. And of course, we can't go by on this episode without some words of wisdom. So, Stephen Prevost, what words of wisdom do you have for the audience?
Oh, I really hate this question because I don't feel like I'm a wise person.
You are, sir. You are.
Well, it's only because I don't know. I'm just I guess the real wisdom I have, I guess, is always learn something new. You know, because, and if you don't, if you're the kind of person who doesn't have like a curious personality, ooh, what does it do? What is that? How does that work? If you're not that kind of person normally, you should become that kind of person, because you really would enjoy life a lot more because learning new things is really exciting. So, and of course it's beneficial because, for instance, like when you're learning new things about coffee, you get to enjoy your coffee experience a lot more. And then, just love yourself. I mean, if you don't love yourself, you don't deserve to be loved by somebody else. I mean, that's not entirely true, but you make it really difficult for the rest of us to love you if you don't love yourself. And if I don't know.
No, that's a good one. I think that's you're right. Learn something new every day.
Yeah. I mean,
we live in such an amazing time where information, if you're watching this, that means you're on social media somehow.
Yeah,
and if you're on social media, you have access to the World Wide Web. And if you do, you have a world of information at your fingertips. Like just right now, when we were talking about Wheela, and you were like, that's how you say it. And I was like, what is he talking about? Oh, there you go. And just like that, we both learned something new. And so, yeah, I totally dig it. Learn something new every day.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be a huge life-changing experience, or, you don't have to go to college or anything. Just, learn something that's just a little bit outside of your comfort zone, just for random, just for random information. Because you might find yourself on this track, you know, like, I don't know how much, if we have enough time, but, you know, kind of want to go back to a little bit after my brother Joe passed away. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do something with coffee, you know, and that little 10-second, however long it took me, probably not even that, it was like 2 seconds to decide. I wanted to do something with coffee to honor my brother. That simple, short sentence. Fast forward from 2012 all the way to now, I'm a coffee roaster. I have my own brand. I've learned a whole bunch. I can't even tell you, obviously, how much I've learned. It changed my life, you know, just making that little tiny decision to learn something new. And I'm all the better for it. I'm happier for it. You know, my life has been improved just because, I mean, even if I never sold another bag of coffee and I went out of business tomorrow, I would be still so happy that I have done what I've done, because at the very minimum, I enjoy my coffee experience so much better now every day. You know, it's like, because when I pour that coffee, you know, whether it be Wonderland blend or Bali or Colombia or Tanzania, I literally look in my cup and I say a little prayer and I say, thank you, God, for those farmers, whoever they are, they nameless, faceless people. I love them because, dang, this is good coffee, you know, and I really owe it to them. It's not me, you know, it's all, there's like thousands of people between that little farmer person and me who made this coffee happen, you know. I'm just the last link in the chain, you know.
And you know, and then take it from you. I think I shared this with you the last time, when the morning my mom passed.
Yeah.
My mom. There are certain things that I remember about my mom from when I was a kid, and she smoked when I was a kid. She smoked Palmar Reds, drank black coffee, and from the moment I can remember, and it's an aroma for me now. It was the smell of Pall Mall cigarettes and cold coffee, and I will forever remember that with so much love.
Mm-hmm.
The morning that they called us from Texas that she passed, it was 3:30 in the morning here in California. And Christian, we were lying in bed, and Christian's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "We should get up and have a cup of coffee for her."
Mm-hmm.
And we did. We got up, we lit a candle in her honor. We had a cup of coffee. We sat here in silence. I played some music on the computer that she liked, and we finished a cup of coffee. And
yeah, it's a beautiful way to honor her.
so it's really cool. And I know that the cup of coffee that I had didn't necessarily come for Stephen got it, and I didn't know Stephen then, but it's so cool to, in my head, put a memory in my face, knowing that there was some lady in Colombia sorting through the coffees to make sure that it got delivered, that it got packaged. It ended up in my cupboard, and then I got to enjoy it in honor of my mom. There is like, that's how I choose to remember that moment now. And with you telling me the story, I can put it all together, and it's really, really cool. I don't know if you saw this comment from Christian, but I wanted to make sure that you saw it. He says, "I learned that the Swiss water is not just what comes out of the faucets in Switzerland."
Yeah, yeah. In every dark cloud, that's true.
I wish we had your Wonderland coffee that morning. Yeah, man. But you know what? Her anniversary is coming up in August, and I will make sure that we have that, and we will honor it for you. So we're done for the last 5 minutes. Is there anything that we didn't get to that you can just say real quick? I know if you can see your website is right there. Is there anything special that folks can look for right now? Any special blend you want to talk about?
I don't have any. Well, I do kind of have a new I do have a new coffee coming up, but I'm just, I guess, watch my website because I can't really say right now. I'm still in the testing phase, but
and I know Christian wants to come on to say goodbye before we leave. So if Christian, if you want to jump on in the conversation, I'm going to mute myself for a minute because I know he has a question.
Uh-oh.
There we are. So for everybody watching, I'm going to let Christian close the show up for us today because he has a couple of questions to. I think he has a question to ask. Oh, he wants to know about the. Sorry, I thought he was going to come on to tell us about the new tea thing. Was there a new tea thing?
The new tea? I don't think so.
Well, all of a sudden, I'm the marketing person for Joe's Brothers Coffee now.
You're talking about the new tea thing. Did I tell you about
it's made from the skin of the cherries.
Oh, that's not new, honey.
Oh, I hadn't seen it when I went there before.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, there is actually, Joe's Brothers Coffee actually has a tea option.
Yes, yeah. It's actually, what that's called is cascara.
Oh, cascara. There you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say cascadia, but that's not it.
No, it's called cascara. And what it is the dried skins of the coffee fruit.
Wow.
So remember the beginning of the show, I was talking about how the coffee seed, the coffee bean that we brew is actually the seed of the fruit, and which is technically the coffee cherry. So during the processing, the fruit and the skin and everything is removed from the seed. And then of course the seed goes on to be washed and dried and processed and sent to me. For just since the beginning of time, the cascara, which is the skin, and the mucilage, which is the fruity, mucusy stuff of the fruit, that's all been thrown away or made into compost or something like that. Well, then somebody decided, somewhere along the line, somebody decided, hey, let's try this and see if we can't make a beverage out of it. And so they did. So they separate the actual, there's like the meaty part of the fruit is separated, and so you're just left with the skin. And then so that's dried and then packed up and shipped out to people like me.
Is it caffeinated?
It is caffeinated.
Wow, that's a good tea.
I'm sorry I didn't think to it, but I would have sent you a sample when I sent you your other stuff. But yeah, it's actually quite good. It's really super unique. If you have a chance, as I mentioned before, if you got a local coffee house somewhere nearby that is an independent coffee shop, go in and ask them if they offer the cascara. It is really something special.
It's amazing that it's made from the skin of the beans, like of the fruit. I would never have thought of that. And it's also having just its mere existence is a green effort. There's no more waste. The waste, it's not being wasted anymore. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And it really, again, helps the farmers out too, because that's another product that they can sell. And which of course, if you know anything about coffee farmers, they're usually pretty poor. And they're always fighting the battle to stay, keep their head above water, so to speak. And so any little bit helps them. And if we can pay more for our coffee, then that will help them too. So like a specialty coffee roaster. We're almost out of time. Well, I make that another thing.
Another visit.
Another visit some other time. But yeah, there's the commercial grade coffee and there's specialty coffee pricing, and it
basically turns into like there's corporate farms out there that supply the burnt nasty coffee that I get from that I experienced from a certain place. And then there are the specialty farmers, or the farmers who I think in a much more holistic manner and much more in tune with our environment create coffee and allow coffee to grow in nature, and then they dry it, and it's amazing. So I would rather support the specialty than the corporate monster, because all those corporate monster garbage in our world is what's killing us. So we need to get back to nature. So I think that's an amazing, I didn't know this. Like I learned this talking to you. I learned this from the last call and this call, you know, and like I said, I thought Swiss water was just tap water in Switzerland. I had no idea what it could do.
No.
And I looked it up too. I was like, that's really interesting. Yeah.
And so that's
and
the only decaf I sell is the Swiss water decaf. And and they do offer coffees from, I think, all parts of the coffee growing world. So, you know, if you like a good, you know, Tanzania coffee, then you could probably get it in a Swiss water process. But the only Swiss water process that I have currently is from Peru. So
okay. Yeah. Well, we are at our time.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen, for being on Daniel's Put It Together Conversations. It was a pleasure seeing you again and having you. I love to consider you a friend. I love the product you sent with the personalization. Thank you. And remember, everyone, Put It Together Conversations, usually 2 to 3 shows on Saturdays. Friday at 5 p.m. is Card Devo. Wednesdays, every Wednesday, just about, is 6 o'clock is the Christian and Daniel show, which is my favorite of the 3. Only because I'm part of it. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for asking questions. Don't forget, Daniel's book is now officially available on Bookshop, Target, Bunny 17 Media, Amazon Books, which is the big one, and Barnes & Noble. It's The Grumpy Bunny and the Colorscape. And it is actually illustrated by an 11-year-old. So it is a really amazing children's book. Buy lots for gifts, you know, just buy ahead of time and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. You know, there's going to be birthdays and all that good stuff, anniversaries coming up.
Exactly. Coffee and a book. Who doesn't love that?
Exactly. There you go.
All righty. We will see you later. My producer is telling me to say goodbye. Say goodbye, folks.